probably around 2010, I believe it was. I found an old ledger that was on top of a refrigerator in a break room, and I showed it to my assistant chief, and I told him that somebody needs to put this up for historical value. He said that the chief was looking for someone to maybe put together a museum, and if I'd be interested. And I said, well, I would definitely need a committee to help me out with that. So over a period of, say, 7 months, then I was able to put together a committee after I got the okay from the chief, and that's where things got going. And then over a period of about 4 years, I guess, I was able to make a collection of different artifacts. I had to meet with a lot of the old retirees. Used to have to go to a lot of the old coffee shops and restaurants where they hung out. There was a couple of articles come out in the newspaper, and they also were telling the public that we were looking for artifacts for the museum. And a lot of relatives from past employees had some put up, and they didn't know what to do with those artifacts. So when they saw the article in the paper that we were looking at getting things for a museum, they donated a lot of those. That was a big question where to put it, because at the time we had no storage or place to put it at our old police department at 721 North 4th. And so I had to basically store a bunch of artifacts in some wooden lockers at the old police building. And then once we moved over here, I started storing stuff on the 3rd floor because it was just a vacant shell. About a year before Chief Stroman retired, he had mentioned that there was some space over here on the 9th floor of the tower that we could use, and this worked out perfect. This is the ledger here that I found on top of the refrigerator in the break room that I was telling you about, and a particular page is opened up to is 1924. A lot of people find these pictures here interesting over the years, especially the one with the officers in the white dress uniforms, and that was during the time when Chief McNamara was police chief. And what I found out later was that the white uniforms was a dress parade uniform. This is the badge I was telling you about that was 1900s by George Bernard. That's the oldest item that we have here in the museum. Another section here dealing with the motorcycle unit that we had over the years. And then over here are some items that have been confiscated off the bad guys over a period of time, and some of them go way back when they used to wrap up chains and with tape and use that as a weapon, and the brass knuckles were real popular back in the 50s and 60s. This jacket here is referred to as an Eisenhower jacket, and they were worn during the 1950s and 60s, and made out of wool, and they were very, very warm during the summertime for sure. The canine bite suit jacket there. When we started using canines, then we would have employees, volunteers basically, to put the suit on and then get bit by the dog. You can tell that has been bit several times. I started going to the museums that we have here in Waco because I noticed that a lot of museums had foam board, and the pictures were put on the foam board, and I had no idea how to do that. In fact, whenever the assistant chief gave me the green light, I did not have the foggiest idea how to do a museum. I was told and shown also how to do the pictures on the foam board, and it's really simple. It's really not a lot to it. It's just very time consuming because you have to do a lot of cutting and gluing and stuff like that. And our first female officers was right here, Carol Bird. And she was the first female officer to start serving in patrol. And our first black officer was C.F. Franklin, worked from 1945 to 1964. And then back in 1976, this is Roger Barrett's uniform that He was killed in line of duty in 1976 at the bus station. The first radios that came out, you could tell there was a lot of static in the air and stuff, and then you only had just a couple of channels to pick from. Where nowadays you can talk to different departments in the city and the sheriff's department. So that's come a long way, and the range is a lot better too. Yeah. Now this is something that's interesting because the patches that we've had in the past, when I started we had the wagon wheel patch that was started in 1964, but they had two patches before that. The one before that was a black patch with a yellow wheel, and it went from 1953 to 1964, and for many years I thought that was the first original patch. But after looking at some of the old photographs, I saw that there was another patch before that, and which was another black with a white outline of Texas, and then the yellow wagon wheel. But inside it had Waco Police, Lubbock, Texas. And as you can tell by looking at it, you can tell why they didn't use it very long, because you can't read the letters because the letters are in purple. And so the first patch apparently came out, from what I can tell, right after the tornado in 1953. And it wasn't used very long. And then they made a quick switch to the next one, which stood out a lot better. And then for a little while too, we did have a bicycle unit. And this is one of the bicycles that was used. And then the detectives area right here with the use of the polygraph. We even had use of plaster of Paris to do footprints and marks in the ground like that. So I remember back in the day when I started went through the academy in 1979, and they were still using this plaster of Paris back then. And then a lot of people recognize the name of Wiley Stem, and his grandfather, Captain Wiley Stem, Sr., was a captain at the Waco Police Department for several years. And this is his Colt semi-automatic gun that he used when he worked here. Some of the SWAT gear we've had over the years, and the officers that we've had to start the unit. In 1976 was the first SWAT team. And then this is some of the equipment and the gear that they use here. I was really amazed how the officers and even the civilians here were excited to have a museum here to show the history of the police department. Anytime between 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, contact 750-1761, and that would be our crime prevention unit, and just set up an appointment to come up here and tour the museum. It's open to the public, and you just need an escort up here, and a lot of times those guys in the crime prevention unit can get you in the same day you call. There is a rich history here, and it goes way back into the late 1800s, and the Waco Police Department has been a very professional department, and the officers here are good officers, and they've all done a good job, and even over the years, of course we've lost some through line of duty deaths and stuff, but they're a good group of people. They care about the community, and we're just glad that we can preserve some of that history here in the museum.